we're going to show you how to make a really nice and crispy tofu rice bowl.
The reason we love it so much is it's got great plant-based protein from tofu. Tofu is something that you're going to need to learn how to cook and make it taste great. And once you figure that out, the world's your oyster. The first thing that we're going to get started with is making our satay sauce. So we can just make this to begin with and leave it to one side, because when we come to cook our tofu, we want to be doing that straight into the pan and then straight onto the plate. First, we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. This recipe is based on using 100% peanut butter with no added extra sugars or anything like that. We think that will taste the nicest. We're using that smooth peanut butter, but crunchy peanut butter is also really nice in a satay sauce. Next, we're going to add in a tablespoon of soy sauce and then some grated ginger. We're using a microplane to get ours nice and fine. We want to add some lime juice. Gosh, this lime is very sturdy and does not want to be squeezed. Some sweetness from the agave syrup. Just a little side tip is we get our peanut butter from Aldi. They do the best, most affordable peanut butter. They do these huge big tubs for I think it's around $3.99, which is an absolute bargain. Depending on the consistency of your peanut butter, you might want to add a bit more liquid content, because we want ours to be a really nice kind of drizzle that we can put on at the end. So we're just going to add in a little bit of water just to help thin that down. This is looking great. It's exactly the kind of consistency that we want. We've got some lovely purple sprouting broccoli here to go with our tofu and our rice, and we're going to actually roast this in the oven. We really like the kind of charred flavour the broccoli gets. It's also nice not to have too many things going on the hob, because you're going to have your tofu and your rice. So having the broccoli done in the oven is kind of one less pan to worry about. You can just shove it in and get on with the other elements of the dish whilst this cooks, and then once it's done, you can also just leave it in the oven and not worry about timings and all that kind of thing. We're keeping the flavours pretty simple for our broccoli. You could even just do it straight in the oven with some oil, but we're going to add a little optional flavour extra thing. So we're going to be going in with some sesame oil, just because it has a really lovely nutty flavour, and then we're also going to use some fresh lime juice as well, and then a sprinkle of salt. Another option, if you like things with a bit of heat, you could sprinkle on some chili flakes as well. That'd be a really nice additional little kick to this dish. You don't have to do this, but I don't want to waste any of the sesame oil, so I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a smush around in the pan. The reason we're using purple sprouting broccoli, honestly, is just because it was on deal at the shop, and we thought, perfect. You can use tender stem or just regular broccoli. It'll all be kind of the same, so just pick whatever you prefer. The last thing that we're going to do before we get started on the tofu is put our rice on. We're using some basmati rice. It's going to take about 15 minutes. Some sticky jasmine rice would also be very nice in this dish. Brown rice or even noodles, but today we're going for rice. So yeah, we're going to get that on and just leave it doing its thing, and then come back and get started with the tofu, which is arguably the best bit. We're now going to move on to cooking our tofu. Tofu is one of those things that you really need to know how to make if you're going to go vegan, or you want to cook more vegan and plant-based meals, because it's such a versatile ingredient. It's got so much great nutrition in it. It's full of plant-based protein. Learning how to make it taste good is a skill, and it takes a bit of time, a bit of understanding. So that's why we're sharing this video with you, because we want everyone to love tofu. So many people they hear the word tofu and they're like, bland, boring, and it's not the case. It just means you're not cooking it right. So hopefully we're here to change that, and what we're going to be doing is making it super crispy. So we're going to chop it up into cubes. You can also crumble it, which also makes it sometimes even more crispy, because you've got those little tiny kind of like nubbiny ends that get really crispy in the oil. But for simplicity today, we're going to do it in cubes, and then we are going to be covering it in flour. Through lots of trial and error over the years, we have found that the best way to get your tofu coated from the corn flour is to add everything into a Tupperware and then give it a good shake around. So we've got our corn flour here. We're going to add that in first, about 2 tablespoons, but obviously it depends how big your block of tofu is. And then we're going to add in some salt and pepper as well. We're now going to shallow fry our tofu in about 2 centimeters of vegetable oil. We're using a little pan, so we're probably going to do it in 2 batches, and then we'll just transfer the cooked stuff to a lined bowl with some kitchen towel just to absorb any of the excess oil, and then you can always store that in the oven as well, just to keep things nice and hot until you finish cooking. Our first batch of tofu is done, and this is the kind of consistency that you're looking for. Nice and golden, a bit crispy, but still with a little bit of a spongy texture to it as well. It's so good. We've plated up our rice, our tofu, and our lovely charred broccoli, and now we're going to go on with the satay sauce that we made earlier. Just wanted to say a little something about these kind of bowls, these like stir-fry noodle rice bowls. We're doing it super simple today, so just the broccoli, but it's kind of like the kind of dish that you could stir-fry any veg with. We've done ours in the oven, but you could definitely do like a classic stir-fry, kind of like your peppers, carrots, mushrooms, all that kind of thing, like in the pan, and then do this crispy tofu on the side. Or sometimes we like to roast things like red cabbage and cauliflower and then put that with the tofu, but the options here are endless. So we're just doing it simple today, but so many different ways of using up veg in the fridge and getting all those different kind of vegetables and nutrients into your diet with a dish like this. You could definitely just stop here and this would be your final dish, but as always, if you've seen our videos before, we like to add on extra little toppings just to make it look a bit nicer and add a little bit extra flavour. So we've got some thinly sliced spring onions, we've got some coriander, and then we're also going to do some sesame seeds, and then we're going to also serve it with a little wedge of lime on the side. The satay sauce is incredible. I could literally just spoon it out of the bowl. It's so tasty.
Oh, this is such a classic dinner for us. I cannot wait to get tucked in.
I agree. I'm gonna make a bold claim. I think this is like the ultimate vegan meal. Like, I
that's what we set out to make.
Yeah, or at least a really good crispy tofu is the ultimate vegan meal. Herby, lemony, butterbean, courgette and pesto beans on toast.
Of course, you can always use store-bought pesto, but we've got a really great recipe and we're going to show you how to make pesto from scratch in just a few minutes.
First thing that we need is to get a big old frying pan out. We've got a nice kind of cast iron casserole dish type thing, and we're going to do some olive oil and garlic in the pan, and then we're going to add in lots of lovely courgettes. So we've cut them into little kind of half moons. So this is just a little side tip, and it's something that we learned when we learned how to cook aglio e olio. It's to get your oil in the pan and then add your garlic in whilst the oil is cold, so that when it heats up on the pan, everything's kind of infusing together and you're getting like all those lovely garlicky flavours infused into that oil. We're going to fry these courgettes off for a bit. We want to cook them most of the way through before we add our beans, because our beans are canned beans that are already pre-cooked. I've cooked these down for about 10 minutes. It's obviously going to depend on how thinly you've sliced your courgettes, but you just want to cook them until they're nice and soft essentially. We're using tinned beans, and these are butter beans. There are lots of other little kind of swaps you can do if you can't get your hands on butter beans, but for now I'm going to get started with cooking these off, and then I'll come back and share our substitution ideas with you in a moment. This looks so lovely and fresh and vibrant. I love all these green colours. Butter beans are what we've gone for, and if butter beans aren't your thing or you haven't been able to find them, then some of the substitutions you could go for are obviously some cannellini beans. You've got your chickpeas as well, which would also be delicious. But for now, let's go on with the cooking. That looks so good. Can't wait to tuck into this.
Just doing a little mid-cooking taste test. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Having a party? Oh yeah.
I've moved the butter beans and courgettes to one side. It's just on the hob now on a very low heat, bubbling away. And now I'm going to move on to the toppings. As with all our recipes, of course, these are all optional steps, but we like to kind of think of little ways of adding extra bits of flavour. Because this is a lazy meal, we're looking for convenience. So one of the things we're going to be adding onto the top is pesto, and you could definitely use a shop bought pesto if you were looking to be super speedy with things, but we're going to show you how to make a delicious homemade pesto, and we're going to be using some basil, olive and pine nuts, just keeping things very traditional and simple. When we're feeling extra fancy, we sometimes make our pesto in a pestle and mortar, but obviously that is the opposite of lazy. So you're definitely going to need a good high-speed powered blender, food processor, NutriBullet, that kind of thing. We've got this little ninja thing and it works great. This pesto smells incredible. The basil and the garlic, it's just super strong, super punchy, which is exactly what we need. Can't wait to try this. We're going to be using this Oatly creamy oat fresh. This is one of our favourite kind of dairy-free alternatives. But it's great because it's got a really kind of nice, thick texture. If you were looking to do a more of a homemade version and you want to avoid these shop bought products, or you just wanted something with a little bit of extra protein in and you have the time, then a really nice silken tofu based sauce would be delicious here. We can link some of our recipes before that we've made, put them down in the description, so you could do a nice cashew based sauce or a silken tofu, or sometimes we even combine the two together. Because this is our lazy meals, we're going to be using this today. That is delicious. It is fresh, herby lemon. You can taste everything coming through in the pesto. It's really nice, kind of like balancing, kind of quite punchy flavour against the creamy beans. This is absolutely delicious. So this is the kind of thing that we would probably do for like a brunch, but if you wanted to go for dinner and make it feel a little bit more like an evening meal instead of just having something on toast, but there's nothing wrong with that. We're going to show you another option now of how you could serve this up for an evening meal.
So for dinner, we're going to plate this up into a nice shallow plate bowl kind of thing, and then top it with a little drizzle of the olive oil again, some creme fraiche, and then pesto, some lemon, some pepper, all of those nice little things that have gone in, we're going to go on top with as well. As you can see, this is it all plated up for dinner, and like this it takes on more sort of stew kind of vibe, where you can have it with a bit of crusty bread on the side, or just as it is. You don't need the bread at all, but this is going to be delicious just like this. You can taste everything. You can taste the cinnamon and the chocolate and the maple, and then when you bite into the pear, it's like just the right amount of cooked. Like it's soft but still like a tiny bit of a bite to it. It's like having a pudding. Our next recipe is a proper weeknight classic. We're going to be making a lovely warming dal, and the thing that makes this dal a little bit different is that it's a Tarka Dal, so we will get to the Tarka part of the dal later on, but for now we're going to get straight on with cooking our lentils.
what my granddad used in his recipes, mainly for ease, but we wanted to kind of keep as close to his recipe as possible because it was so delicious when he made it for us. But if you don't have ginger and garlic paste, then fresh ginger, fresh garlic, you could just use a microplane and grate it up nice and finely. This recipe is based off of a recipe that my granddad gave to us. He is Indian and we went to visit him at the end of last year. He's in his 90s now, so he spent his lifetime cooking amazing Indian meals, learning from his mother, my great grandmother. So we wanted to go and visit him and also just get some of his amazing insight into these recipes. So he took us through this recipe, we wrote it all down, we've made a few little tweaks, obviously like some of the things that we veganized, but one of the things that he added in was some courgette. And he's very like relaxed in his cooking approach. It was like, just add in a bit of courgette, or you could add in a bit of tomato, or you could add in a bit, you know, whatever you want kind of thing. So we tried it with the courgette, it was delicious. So we're going to show you guys with the courgette in as well. You could obviously sub it out for something else like an aubergine, or just not at all, but it is really nice. So we would recommend that you try it. Our lentils have been cooking away, our courgette is cooked through, and everything is almost ready to serve up. So we're going to add in our tarka now, and tarka is essentially onions cooked in oil with spices, and you get lovely crispy onions. I'm sure you can hear them. They sound very crispy. And then we added in some garam masala, and they're smelling amazing. Those gorgeous spices and the sweet red onion, and we're going to stir that through the dal and then leaving a little bit left for the topping. So that's it. It's a very simple recipe, and actually a lot of the time you're just leaving things cooking on the hob so you can get on with other things, which is what we were doing just now. So it's perfect for those kind of evenings when you're very tired at home, you just want something nice and warming and hearty. So the last thing to do is just add on some toppings. We're going to be adding in a little bit of vegan cream just to swell in. Some vegan yogurt would also be really nice. And then we're going to do a sprinkle of coriander, and then we've got our tarka that we've saved back, just a little bit of those crispy onions for the top as well. I might also go on with a little bit of crispy chili oil, just because it adds a really nice vibrant red color, which is going to look gorgeous in those kind of like ochre colored lentils, and it's going to add a little bit extra heat because the garam masala is more of like a fragrant spice as opposed to a heat spice. So if you like things a bit spicy, then a little bit of chili oil on the top is going to be delicious. And I think we're going to serve it with some naan bread, but rice would be lovely too, chapati, roti, anything like that. It's going to be delicious, so can't wait to try it.
This looks and smells amazing, so nothing left to do but try it. That tastes so good. What's really interesting is this isn't similar to other dals that I've had. Instead of big, bold flavors, it's just really aromatic and really delicate, which is really interesting.
I think that's what's nice about the chili oil, is that it just gives you that little bit of kick.
But a great thing about this recipe is how good it is at storing.
We've got one here for the freezer and one here for the fridge. This is going to be about 2 portions in each Tupperware.
We are going to be having vegan fish finger sandwiches. We've got these Green Cuisine bird's eye vegan fish fingers in from the freezer aisle. We're not going to be making a regular fish finger sandwich. We're going to be leveling it up and making a focaccia fish finger sandwich. We are going for a garlic aioli, and then we've got a nice surprise sort of salty topping dressing kind of thing to go on it as well.
The fish fingers are in the oven. They take about 12 to 15 minutes. So whilst they have been cooking, we've made this lovely little, I think I'm going to call it we're calling it a salsa. So the closest thing that we would call, it's a salsa, but it's got...
It's an olive salsa.
Capers, olives, parsley, lemon, olive oil, salt and pepper. So it's kind of inspired by tartar sauce, because you would find some of these things in that. But we've kind of like separated the mayo and doing like the layer of aioli and then
how chefy. It's a deconstructed tartar sauce.
We just thought it would be nice to kind of have this like spoon on the top.
How does it try? We've not tried it yet. First time on camera. Yeah, it's gonna work?
Yeah. Because when we were researching this recipe, Charlie found, he was like looking up kind of Mediterranean Spanish inspired fish dishes, so not like your classic fish finger sandwich.
Like white fish with tomatoes and olives.
So yeah, we were kind of inspired by that. I just wanted to make it a bit different because we've shown you guys how to make a fish finger sandwich. Like, there's not much to it, it's fish fingers and bread, but yeah, we just thought we'd do something a bit different. I mean, this is definitely not the best focaccia. We did try and get some nice stuff from like a bakery, but they'd sold out, so we've just gone with the trusty Sainsbury's. But obviously the nicer the focaccia, the better the sandwich is going to be.
It's like all the bloody rosemary's on the bottom. Check out the bottom of that. This should be a really quick lunch to get together, because you just put your vegan fish fingers in the oven and they take like, what, 12 to 15 minutes. And then in that time, you can make your olive salsa, which is what we're calling it, cut your bread, make your, well, you don't have to make it really, we got ours from the shop. So that's it, it's not really much cooking involved, it's just layering the pre-bought shop elements. Focaccia, aioli, rocket, fish fingers, olive salsa, red pickled onions, and then finish it off with the focaccia. Is that everything you wanted it to be?
That's so good.
And more.
Like, I think the best fish finger sandwiches are made with that like proper white sliced bread, like not sourdough, not any of that.
Classic farmhouse loaf.
Because this is so soft and squishy, it's a little bit like that.
Nice. So I've got my garlic and onion, celery and carrot.
This is starting to smell really good. We've just added the wine and we're cooking that down now. And also, as we're cooking it, a lot of other kind of liquids are being released from the veggies and the lentils and things like that. So we're cooking all of that liquid off before we add in the next ingredients. This is one of my favourite kind of like comfort meals, the good old pasta, bolognese, ragu, that kind of thing. Inspired by those flavours, but obviously we're doing the vegan version and we're not doing it with vegan mince. So we've gone for the lentil and walnut combo.
We're gonna add in a little bit of this hickory liquid smoke. This is very much a very, very optional addition. It's just gonna add a little bit of smokiness to our ragu. This is to try and like mimic some of those slightly meatier tastes, like pancetta or bacony kind of flavours. It's actually left over from Christmas. We got it as a backup for if we couldn't get smoked salmon, we were going to make carrot lox with this. But yeah, we've got it in, so we'll add a little splash in.
We don't want it to overpower it, just like a little tiny hint, just to add a bit of depth.
We're gonna get on with the next recipe now, which is a no-fuss weeknight gochujang noodle bowl. This recipe is absolutely bursting with flavor. I mean, with the tofu, you have gochujang, the ginger, the garlic, all of that kind of stuff going on. But when it comes to the noodles, we've got an extra little flavor boost that we'll show you later. But for now, let's just get started with the tofu.
This can definitely feel like a bit of a workout. To make the sauce for the noodles. You could just keep these plain, but if you want some extra flavor, then we've come up with a simple little sauce, which is going to be chili oil, sesame oil, and miso. So we're just going to mix that in a little bowl together, and then we'll pour that over our noodles, mix it all together just before serving. of everything. Well, not everything, 2 things. The noodles have that lovely umami miso flavour, which is a little bit more earthy and sweet, and then the gochujang tofu is kind of a bit more fiery and zesty, so the two together are so tasty. And then we've got all these lovely fresh ingredients like the grated carrot and the little cucumber rounds. This is a very nice, fresh, delicious, warming, no fuss weeknight meal. We're going to be doing a cauliflower soup, but we're adding in some cannellini beans for extra protein, and also it just makes things kind of nice and smooth and creamy because we're going to be blending it all together. We've already got our cauliflower florets steaming. We want them cooked before everything goes into the pan, and then we're going to fry down the garlic and onions and leeks and all the lovely herbs and things like that and mix it all together. So hopefully it'll be a very quick thing to make because I'm getting hungry, and it's going to make lots of leftovers too, so we can have it again later in the week. Wasn't too hard to make, so it's all finished now, it's all blended up, and we've just done a few little simple toppings. We've done a little drizzle of vegan cream, some olive oil, some fresh herbs, and then we had some almonds, so I'm just gonna have it as it is. That's very good, warming and hearty, but also fresh as well because of the herbs and the lemon. It doesn't feel too heavy. So we're just going to have this with a little bit of rocket on the side. Might do a little drizzle of oil and squeeze a lemon, but keeping it very simple today. So we actually made enough cashew tofu ricotta and this beetroot squash for 2, so we've got leftovers. We're only having it once this week, so I'm going to add some of the leftover ricotta onto the...
Just a little extra detail.
We've just put these in the fridge for about an hour. Obviously they're called overnight oats, so the best thing to do is to do them overnight, but if you're short on time, an hour or 2 hours is probably enough. So these are looking really good, they're smelling amazing. It does smell like coffee, so I'm excited to try these, and we're gonna do a fun little layered thing in a glass. You don't have to, you could just put these in a bowl and then add the toppings on, but because we want to create that kind of like tiramisu vibe, we're gonna create some layers.